So welcome everybody. This class today is plan information and symbols, and it's part of our design series. It's more, I was just mentioning, this is going to be not really an elementary or course, but it's a lot of people that aren't used to working with plans and designs, whether they've been in an office, an architectural firm or not. This is going to be kind of a conceptual presentation that addresses how we put plans together and what we typically need for our industry for landscape lighting as it applies to conceptual plans. So let's go ahead and I'll share this screen and we'll get rolling. There we go. Can you guys see that okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, good.
Yeah.
Okay. So as I mentioned, this is plan information and symbols. I'm Mark Carlson, if you don't know me. This is what we want to do is we're going to talk about some considerations here. So the first consideration we need to look at as landscape lighting designers is what type of plan do you need to work with? And I typically tell people that are working this trade is you can do a detailed scale drawing where you measure everything out exactly and spend a ton of time or money trying to create these plans. But is that really necessary for what we're trying to do? Most of landscape lighting is done to where it's diagrammatic. It's kind of like irrigation plans where you're showing the information, but it may not be exactly located as where it's at on the drawing. There's going to be a lot of flexibility in the field based on how the contractor will install the system. And then those things can all be updated on an as-built plan at the end of the job. So what I'm talking about here is, what type of plan? Is it going to be a scaled drawing or a relative scale drawing? And I typically do almost all of my drawings are done in relative scale. So I'll actually go out on a job site and I will locate structures. This is assuming that I don't have a plan to work with. And what I would suggest is that if you first go to land a job or you're working with a customer, that you try to capture or gather information. So gather as many different plans as you can get, specifically like a site plan or a landscape plan that's already been drawn up, where you can take that and use it as a base sheet. So you can actually take some trace paper, which I do, and I'll lay it over the top of the plan and I'll just draw in the information that I need. So like property boundaries, just the building structures, the large trees, if they're located on there, anything pertinent to understanding the project and where things are located. And then from there, you can take that and then you can start adding your information like lighting symbols and equipment locations, whether it's transformers or power supplies, switches, different things like that. So that's the advantage of the relative scale drawing, is that it's quicker, it's easier, it still conveys the message, and that's really the key point. Is whatever drawing that you present for your customer, you want it to be easy to understand. So if you bog down the plans too much with too many different levels of information, it may start to become confusing for them. So then the next type of plan, like I just mentioned, there's conceptual plans and then there's construction plans or architectural plans. Sometimes they'll call these the construction drawings. Those are the ones that are very detailed and you'll find typically in the construction business. Again, back with what we're doing, we can get away with a conceptual plan because that makes the most sense and it's the cost effective. So then the next question is, who's using these plans? are you presenting a plan that's going to a residential homeowner, which is most of the cases for us? Or is it going to be something more large scale, like a commercial project, hospitality setting like a restaurant, or some sort of public garden or whatever the case may be. So depending on what and who you're presenting this to, you might determine again the relative scale drawings can be your best bet for that. Again, if you're going commercial and larger scale, then they may typically want something that's more to a scale drawing, because typically you're working with other trades. You'll have general contractors, electricians, plumbers, landscapers, you'll have a whole mix of different providers. So if you can have your work incorporated into their master set of plans, that would be great. So then what I would suggest is you take one of their sheets that they have in the architect's plans, again, a site plan, or maybe they have a landscape plan, and then take that and conform it to what we're applying and then add it to their set to be documented. And again, we're looking at either, is it small scale or large scale? You have to look at all these considerations. Next, what's typically shown on these plans? And I'm going to use the term on a cover sheet, which is the first page typically of a drawing set. You'll see a cover sheet and it has a lot of the information that we're going to be talking about, which includes like a title block. You're going to have the scale that's referenced there, the scale of the drawing, the revision block, the job number, the sheet number within the set of pages, the vicinity map, which can include the north arrow, or you can have a separate area for the north arrow. Sometimes you'll find licenses or stamps, like the landscape architect will have his license stamped on the set of plans, or an architect will. That's in that title block area typically. And then you'll want to have project information, like who's the owner of the project? Is it the homeowner? Is it a commercial developer? Whatever the case may be. And then you'll have address information, or at least city and state that it's located in. You may not have, again, depending on, I guess, security issues or privacy issues. I should say that, because some homeowners or important people don't want to have that type of information relative onto these plans. So again, be sensitive to that. And then the other thing is who are the team members that are involved on the project? You might want to list, if you're working with an electrician on the job, have their name and license number, contact information listed there. Maybe it's the landscape architect again. Maybe it's the landscaper, have those key people listed on there. So then that way it's easy to find the information and everybody knows who's who. Also on plan information, what a conceptual plan is, if you don't know, when I say plan view, that's as if you're looking down onto the job site. So like a bird's eye view, that's what that means. So typically those are the type of plans that we work with when we present to a customer, so that we can locate our lighting fixtures. So it's graphically, it's easier to see and understand. You can also use elevations, they're called, whereas if you're looking at the front of a building or whatever side of the building you're looking at, you'll see that elevation. And you can also use those to show where fixtures might be mounted on the building or whatever it is that you're showing in the elevation. I'm going to show you some examples of these coming up, but I'm just telling you what they are. You'll also find general notes on this page, which are basically key informational notes that basically try to cover your butt if there's any kind of questions or liability issues. let's say something goes wrong on a project and you have multiple contractors and such, if you have in your general notes things listed there to help protect you, like who's responsible for what, those types of information, you'll add that there. Sheet index, that's another area which basically if you're working with a set of plans, then that will identify every single sheet in the whole set of plans. So it could be a big list there. Let's say you have 30 sheets, then you're going to identify each sheet by title, page number or sheet number, and what it's for. Is it for the site information? Is it electrical? Is it plumb? Everything will be broken down in the sheet index. And then the last other big list is an abbreviation list, even though a lot of people don't use those. They're still provided on a lot of plan sets, you'll see, and it'll be abbreviations that are listed on there and what they mean. So like if you see NTS listed on the plan, that means not to scale. So there's different terms that are used, like industry standard terms. POC, point of connection, things like that. Those types of things are listed in the abbreviations list. You don't have to use all of this information. We're just talking about this so that you understand what is normally done in the architectural world. So then that way, if you decide you need more information to fit in with these other trades, that you can provide for these things. And then lastly, there's the legend or legend. In our case, the landscape lighting legend, where we're going to identify symbols that are used for particular products or fixtures, light fixtures or equipment, let's say that. So each light fixture, you'll use a different symbol type. And then you'll have it just a quick description of that, uplight, and then you can even have, by, Sterling lighting, model number, blah, blah, blah. You can have that information on there if you want. And then you can also have little notes attached to that. Let's say you're using retrofit LEDs inside these lamp or inside the fixtures instead of being an integrated unit, then you might identify what LEDs being used for those fixtures. Or you could, because there's a big variety of LEDs, as you know, beam spreads and wattage, volt amps. I mean, everything that's involved with LEDs, you may have to have a separate table or chart that describes all of that. And then maybe even reference numbers for that, if you want to get really detailed. Again, for conceptual lighting plans, I'm going to show you examples where I don't go to that kind of detail, only if it's a big project. Let's say, it's tied in with commercial and other trades, then I may include these things. But if it's just a typical residence, I keep it as simple as I can, not to overwhelm. I know the information, but the homeowner doesn't really care. As long as I can install it properly and know what I'm doing, then that's, to gain the end result, that's all that matters. And again, let me mention this. I'm sorry, I keep kind of jumping around. I work for myself. I do everything. So I'm the designer, I'm the installer, and I'm the service provider, maintenance. So that makes it easier for plans like this because I don't need to put all that supporting documentation or information on there because I'm doing all the work. But if you're a designer only, let's say, or a consultant, then this type of information is critical because if you bid out the job to an installer, another contractor to perform the work, same with the service provider, they need to know a lot of this information so that they can bid the job properly or they can maintain it properly. So just remember that. Any questions so far? Okay.
Nope.
And if I'm going too fast or rattling off too much information at once, I tend to do that. Please slow me down or say something. I don't mean to do that. I kind of get excited as I go. So here's an example. Now I had to separate this into two. Like if we look at the next slide here, see off to the right, this is the title block. All that information's off to the right side. That's typically what you'll find on architectural sets. This is kind of a common layout. It's always on that far right side because most plans are stapled on the left side going down so that you can open it and read it like a book, or from the top, it just makes it easier that way. So let's go back. Here's the title block information at the very top. And again, these can be in any order you want. There's no specific layout, but typically you'll find, let's say at the bottom, there's always usually this information here, which is like your sheet number, and you can create whatever sheet numbers you want or match whatever's existing in other people's sets. If they say if you're doing the landscape lighting for, like in this case, I called it LL1, my sheet one is landscape lighting one. That's what it refers to. And then it says, how many sheets? I only am submitting one sheet. This is like a conceptual plan. So there's no other sheets attached to the LL series. Does that make sense? Okay. Then above that, then you'll find like a job number. So I have my own job number reference there. Scale, again, a lot of times on plans, you'll see like quarter scale or 1 inch equals 10 feet or 20 feet. Those are common scales that are used in drawings, or even greater, depending on the size of the project. In this case, I put NTS, not to scale, which means that it's diagrammatic. And that therefore I'm not held to any, this is strictly relative. That's all it is. You can have a date on there, which shows when the plan was prepared, who checked it, who drew it, and I just put my initials on there for this purpose. Above that, there's customer information. So again, what's the customer's name? This is a residence. There's their address information and then a phone number. And then I might even have things like what county they live in, what's the community name, that type of information. Then above that, or in the middle somewhere, you'll find what type of plan this is. This is a landscape lighting conceptual plan. You can call them, whatever you want to call them that works best for you. Here on the above that, I'll typically, like in this case, I had my company name and my contact information there, my license number or licenses, whatever you want to add in that section. It just gives you a separate box for your contact information. And if you remember, I talked about the other team members. Depending on how many people are involved, you can try to put all that information in one box there, or maybe you have it on the plan itself in a larger box. So then that way people know exactly who's who. And then above the last one is the revisions. And revisions, you'll find this in architectural offices where, let's say you create the conceptual plan, and then it has to go to get approved by the owner, and then they make changes. Okay, I can't afford this area, or let's add more lights over here. So then you'll want to reference revisions, basically dates, and then who made the revision. In case this is a shared document, a lot of times documents today are now all done through CAD drawings, and they're online and people can share and use them. You need to know who's making changes. There's a way to reference changes on the plan so that people can see them easily. We're not going to get into that right now, but the idea is that this is kind of included for that. Okay, let's go next one. Here's an example. Again, this was a medium to small size residential. Well, let's say medium sized residential out here our way. And you can see here's the house, here's the garage area, the backyard area. He's got a little pool and such. Big parking area here. The driveway that winds both ways, it kind of loops around and then drives back down the hill to the entry gate to the property. And then what I typically do, again, this was all hand drawn, if you can believe that. What I did is I take sketch paper. I'm going to have a separate class on this because it takes too long to try to explain. But I'll actually go to the job site and I'll look at the front of the house in this case, and I start sketching it out diagrammatically. Then I'll go to the corners, I'll go to different reference points along that plane or that part of the home, and I look out and I'll reference then where trees are located. So you can see here, I've got these trees located, different symbol types or shapes that I use to show whether they're deciduous or coniferous type trees. And then that way I'll have a general understanding of where things are located. And then I just start plotting in all this. It may take me 3-4 hours to prepare something at this scale here. And what I'll do is I'll take these individual papers, I take them all, draw them to fit on like an 8.5 by 11 each area. Then I tape them together, and then I'll lay trace paper over the top of that, which is something that you can get. We can talk about that later. And then I redraw that site. Then I take the trace paper into my printer, a local printer. I have them print it all out, or I'll have them actually, I say, take this drawing, whatever size it is, and I say, blow it up to fit 24 by 36 inch sheet, which is this. That's a typical size for architectural drawings. 24 inches wide by 36 inches long. And they'll use that as a standard site. Sometimes they're even larger than that, but that's a common one. And they'll take that and then blow that up onto bond paper, which is a heavier, like normal paper that they use for printing. And then this is the end result. And then I can put on whether the bond or the paper has the title block on it, or I add it. Those are the things that you can do either before or after. It's better if you can do it before and use it as a base sheet, then that way it's all printed out at the same time. But you can see on here, so I locate my drawing. That's the main part of this, and then I'll add other information. In this case, I only added a lighting legend up here. I did not put other general notes on here. I didn't have any abbreviations, none of the other items, because again, all I'm basically doing is trying to sell the homeowner that I know what I'm doing. This is easy enough to understand if you look at it, and I can walk through and explain it to them. And I'm going to show you a close-up of some of this in a minute, where it shows where these symbols are located. So I have on the legend, there's symbols, there's the description. I didn't do anything for the LEDs on this one. And then I also split it up into zones. So I have actually 2 zones here. One zone's back here, and you can see this little dashed line that separates that. And then this is the other zone for the front yard. Okay, here's a close-up of the legend, or this again, it's just a basic legend. I didn't even put any info. I just say up light, down light, wash light. I didn't even go into any detail on the product, because back when I did this was an old job. I didn't have specific details for the homeowner at the time, because he was still trying to figure out what his budget was going to be. So I was just using this purely as markers to show them where things were going to go based on my design. Here's another example, of typical symbols legend that you may find more on the architectural side. So you can see all the different symbols here. And unfortunately, there's no set standards. Well, in some cases there are, but most cases there are not. You have the luxury to create your own symbols. So if you look back on my last one, see these real simple: circles, hexagons, squares, or rectangles. I'll work with those. If it's directional or something, I may add an arrow to it, like you see here, so that shows where the fixture is pointing. And then this squiggly line on these guys here, that just shows that to me that it's a hanging light or a tree light that's up in the tree where it's got, a cable attached to it, obviously. All right, let's keep moving along. So again, you can create whatever you want on symbols. It's just what I would recommend to you if you're new at this. Have a standard set of symbols that that you feel comfortable with. Let's say you use a circle for an uplight, and you can add different descriptive things to that, and change. Like, see here, they've got a circle with a square around it, a circle with a little line. There's different reference for those on how they're mounted, um, and where they're located, or the type. Maybe it's a different wattage or intensity. There's different ways of doing that, but if you have too many symbols, then it can become confusing sometimes, or harder to read. So again, conceptual plans, keep it as simple as you can, and that will help you to, just express what you're trying to create for the homeowner. Here's some of the stuff I like. I'll use a little template. You can buy these templates like at Staples, or any of the graphic stores, or drafting supply stores. They'll have these types of things, and I would just pick up a simple template like this, and then you've got remember those symbols, triangles, all these different symbols are easy to manipulate and add, like a larger circle, add a smaller circle on the inside. So now you've got two different, you can create all kinds of symbols with just this little guy right there. Drawing pens, you want to use something that's like it produces a heavier line, maybe something that produces a thin line. That way you can designate. If you look back at see on here, if you can create that like depth in a sense, looking down, thin lines, or the heavier lines are actually things that are like for buildings, trees, things that are taller or fuller. So there's ways to graphically represent objects so it doesn't look flat. Racers, highlighters, I use highlighters a lot. I'll show you on a couple other drawings coming up that I know. If you look at, like this plan here, see, nothing's colored in here. Let's go to the next. Where did that page go? Here it is. So like, see, here's a close-up on that other drawing. See, you got your tree. Here's 3 fixtures located, and it's in a lawn area. I use this type of a symbol. I might color these in all the same, color them the same color. So then that way they're easy. They're an uplight, but they're in lawn, so they're a well light. And then you've got other, like here's more uplights, but this one's in a planter bed. So you could actually identify them as different colors, or use all uplighting as yellow, for example. All downlighting is pink. All path lighting is green. You can identify types of applications based on color. It makes it easier to see. And it makes the plan pop more too, which excites the customer. They always like to see colors, and, like, well, it's graphically more pleasing to the eye. Okay, let me grab a drink here. Sorry. All right. Remember what I was telling you on plans? It's best provide only what's necessary. So on landscape lighting designs, everything's typically more diagrammatic. So you don't need to worry about all the added details of, measuring things and showing, that part of the graphic. I recommend on conceptual plans, don't show any cable runs. And there's a reason behind this. If you show these other items, then it gives the owner, the customer, an opportunity. Let's say you're trying to sell the job, you're presenting all this information, and if you give them everything up front in your drawings, then they decide, oh, we decided to go with Bob down the street. He was a half your price. And then they've got all your information and they don't have to do any legwork. I would recommend, don't give away everything right up front. Give them enough to where they can understand the plan, sell the job, Then on the as-built plan at the end of the job, you can locate all these other items like cable runs and calculations. So then that way, even if somebody else gets your plan to work with, they still have to try to figure out how to wire it all up and make it work. That's just my suggestion. So I say don't show cable runs, just show only fixtures and transformer locations. Do not provide any calculations or electrical loads. You can do those calculations and determine what's going on with wattage and amperage, but keep that in your file for your use and for your installer's use so that they know what's going on, so that you designed it properly. I again suggest about on these plans, whatever you can do to make them pop so that they're more graphically pleasing to the eye to excite the customer, because that's really what you're doing at this stage is you're just trying to sell your work. And then once you get rolling, then you build that trust relationship, and then everybody's on board with you, and now you're the go-to designer. Only provide enough information to prove that you know what you're doing and that they have no questions to ask. Okay, let's see here. What is the minimum information required on a cover sheet? Again, if this is a conceptual plan, I would just keep it simple. Customer name, contact information, location of job site, and then your information. You know, you're the designer, so give them your information. Have a basic symbols legend to describe what's going on with fixtures and transformers, you know, basic equipment. And then just keep it, you know, relative scale. That's typically the easiest way to do these things. What also should be on the concept plan, or what should be identified. So typically, when we look back at that one drawing, we need to, ideally, we should see what's the scope of work, where are the boundaries, the property lines. You want to know how far to draw out on the property so that you're not spending a lot of extra time. Why draw the entire property unless you're planning to do work on the entire property? Just only do what's needed for what you're hired for. You want to show structures and hardscape elements that can be, you know, concrete patios, pathways, fences, walls, you know, anything hardscape oriented. That's like a permanent structure you want to show. Trees, large plant materials. You don't need to show every single plant that's on the job or ground cover. You can reference that as just showing that it's a planter space. But just knowing the things that are difficult to work with in terms of if you're going to locate a light fixture, you know, is a plant right there or a large plant, you know, where are you going to position those light fixtures so that you're not impeding on those plants, or that you can illuminate them properly. Garden art, and interesting features. You want to locate those because typically those are elements that will light, and those create a lot of added interest and excitement for homeowners, or well, any owner really, whether it's commercial or not, that you want to feature some of these items as focal points. So lighting zones, I would break down your space into multiple zones if you can, depending on how they're used. I talk about this a lot in some other of my classes where, you know, I always ask the question, how is the space intended to be used? Is it for entertainment or activity? If that's the case, there's probably going to require a heavier amount of lighting there, or festivity lights and different things like that to engage in those activities. Whereas let's say it's a relaxing space or a privacy garden or a spa area, then you're going to want to use less lighting. So it's important to understand how you're using each space within the landscape or within the work, you know, scope of work. I'd always try to do like a bubble diagram, they're called, which at the start when I'm out there drawing up my sketches for these designs. I'll go around and I'll identify these areas with a bubble plan. So I may have just the site plan and I'll draw a big circle in one area and they'll say, oh, this is an activity area. This is a privacy garden. This is, and I just bubble out. So then that way I can remember and I can use that when I create the conceptual plan. So then that way for lighting design, you can design according to that use space. Therefore, zoning that, maybe it needs a separate transformer for just that zone, or at least a transformer that's capable of switching or controlling individual zones. So there's a lot of technology out there now to where you can make these kinds of adjustments. But again, breaking it down into zones is a great way to do this. Other considerations, we want to look at what are prominent views. Is there a special view that is spectacular, to work with? You want to have that identified. You want to look at the views from inside the house. Like Chris has mentioned, Chris Mitchell, he teaches some of our design-centric focused courses with business. He talks about, at night, everything's black outside. It's like a dark mirror. You're only seeing what's inside the house when you look out windows. So if you can pick up each window or certain windows in key rooms, maybe it's a living room or a family room or a dining room, even a bedroom, doesn't matter. You want to be able to look out and see something, and you can create these views. So how do you imagine from the inside out? You're extending your living space that way. So take that into consideration. Use areas, we just talked about that. Utility areas. These typically are areas that you don't want to see. So it could be like electrical, water, gas. Maybe it's a work shed, pool equipment pad, whatever it is. These are areas you don't typically want to see at night, so leave those more in shadow. Don't illuminate them around the area so much to where they become now part of that space that's visual, and then it's going to potentially be more of a distraction, or it just takes away that the pleasure of the space. And then lastly, pedestrian access routes. You want to be able to identify those throughout the property, and I would suggest keeping, however you illuminate those spaces, whether it's path lights or down lights from trees or wash lights, indirect lighting into the landscape to pick up those paths. Try to do the same thing throughout, because psychologically, as people enter and move around through unfamiliar areas or the landscape, they can pick up these patterns that they understand them different. Like if it's comfortable to them, and let's say you see path lighting along a pathway, then that's going to give you a sense of comfort in your mind, knowing next time I see path lighting, oh, there's a path that leads somewhere. So it provides more of a sense of calm to the mind, if that makes sense. Safety concerns, steps, stairs, danger areas, whatever it is, you want to make sure that these areas are illuminated well enough so that nobody falls or trips or can get into trouble. And I already talked about utility areas. That's part of, like, same with like utilities. These are typically areas that you don't want to see, so keep them more in shadow. We already looked at this. Now I'm going to show you some different examples of conceptual plans. And I just took some of these. Again, I look a lot of times when I'm on Google or wherever, I'll see stuff posted. If I see something that looks interesting or whatever, I'll capture it. And I'm using this strictly for educational purposes, so I'm not trying to steal anything from anybody, but this was a representation by this KS, or Kansas Outdoor Lighting. And look at it, it's a simple conceptual plan, If this is the front yard, instead of drawing the plan out like I would, they're using, this is an elevation view. So you're seeing the front, they took a picture of the home, simple, right? And then they came in and graphically plotted in these colored dots or like reds for uplights, I'm guessing, and it looks like the blue here are path lights. And then the darker blue are up and down lights. So you see, you can use different symbol types or graphic representations for these, colored dots, colored pens. It doesn't matter. You come up with what system works best for you. This may be a quick and easy way to do it. Take pictures like this and then just plot information on like this so that a typical homeowner would understand and can see. Now, would this work for, an architect or a commercial type project where they have a set of plans? Maybe not. This may be too simplified for them. They may, because they're all used to more detail, like what I was showing you before. Title blocks, all the information laid out. But for this case, for what we're doing, this works great. So here you got this elevation. Here's another elevation that's showing some downlighting onto the driveway. Here's their legend. They don't even, instead of calling it out specifically, you can see uplight, path light, up down light, down light, tree mounts, and the transformer. They just show pictures of the items. That can work too. And you can see here the reference code. The red image or the red dot, like here, all the uplights. Here's your path lights and so on. And then over here is like, instead of a separate title block to one side, you've got, there's the contractor information, the company name, and then down, let's see here. Okay, so here's a sent like a general note that he's included or they've included. Is not responsible for damage done by fixtures, wires. So see, you can add whatever you want on that. Then there's a little description down here. Here's like a breakdown on this would be more probably established for a proposal, a formal proposal. He just included it onto this plan as part of his sales package. Okay. That's not normally on these types of conceptual plans, but he's included it. It's an interesting way of doing it. And here, total cost, deposit, completion. So this is all part of like a contractual stuff. So that's interesting. Nice way of doing it and easy. Any questions on this? Okay. Here's another
You
one.
just kind of broke everything down on that one page.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a nice way of doing it. It keeps the clutter down. You don't have multiple pages and documents all over the place. It's less to worry about, I guess. If that works for you, then go for it. Again, depending on your customer type and what they need. I would always refer to that. And what you're charging. If you're charging 10,000 bucks for this, then that may be questionable to where, the homeowner might get freak out. But I'm talking about the plan work. I'm not talking about the installation. All right, here is another example, again, that I randomly pulled. Some of these photos are going to be they may be a little on the blurry side, but you can see the graphic representation of some type of symbol. These, I'm assuming, are path lights, all in orange. Here's a couple dots, so again, same type of thing. You can see this basic plan or bird's eye view layout. Okay, here's the residence, the cabana, the pool, the hardscape, planting areas around the perimeter, parking. So again, whatever you need for your scope of work so that you can convey what you're doing. There's no cables shown on here. There may be a transformer location shown. I didn't really dig into this, but you see what I'm talking about. Here's another one. Sometimes Google Maps, Google Earth is another way of capturing an image of the project site. So you can see the home, the pool, guessing like a guest house or what. And then they've now, this is very diagrammatic. So they're showing how these light fixtures are connected back to the transformer. Not that this is the actual cable run, again, diagrammatic, but he's showing it based on, you know, how you're doing that. And again, it's simplified. There's no other information on here. So that, you know, there's no title block, there's no reference legend wise. It's just strictly, you know, just a few. Better than a little, you know, napkin sketch, but it just shows you what can be done with something like Google Earth. Here's another one. Again, simplified company name. It doesn't have to always be on the right side. It can be wherever you want on the plan. The scales listed here. Okay. Here's another form of scale. Okay, that you can use. There's no, let me see, here's another point to bring up. Architecturally speaking, on plans, if there's no north scale or north arrow shown on the plan, typically the plan will be oriented to the north, where the north is at the top, just so you know. So again, here, this building outline, this is a common way of doing it. You know, it's a heavy outline. You can see the planter beds here. Here's like a patio cover structure, planter perimeter. Here's the property line around the perimeter, which could be a fence or maybe it's just open, but that's the property line shown. Here's what it's a lighting plan, and here's your legend off to the right side. And it's graphic, mostly of showing pictures. They're giving you quantities of how many they have, and then they're showing like an application image, you know, what it might look like. It's not accurate, but it gives you, you know, graphically for homeowners, they get okay, I see, that's what uplights do. You know, it's another option for them. Here's an interesting one. I haven't seen this too much, but I've started seeing more of this lately, where it's almost on like a black paper or image, and then they've got the highlighting done. Sometimes, and this may be more like a digital type of reference copy. So you can go onto the computer or website or whatever, and then you can see stuff like this. So they're showing where the lights are located, where it's illuminated, and how it might be illuminated. I don't think these are very good or very accurate. They're interesting graphically, but I don't think they really like, see, it's hard to see what's going on with the rest of the property. And if you're a printer and you're trying to print this out, it's a nightmare because you're using all that toner and ink to produce the black. It's not an easy way of doing that. And then legend here of I'm sorry, yeah, the legend, the fixture legend that shows the types of fixtures. No other information should have, but that's just a graphic. Here's another one again. Apologize about it being, I tried to blow these up and they weren't a full-size image to begin with. But you can see basically here's our lighting legend. Again, color coding, description, quantities. You know, here's a north arrow shown here. Lighting plan with the scale, company name, information, and then here's your plan, property lines, boundaries, and then it shows your structure, hardscape, softscape elements, all your trees and such, and then where the fixtures are located or the equipment. Again, conceptual, works to sell the job. Another one, again, sorry about the blow up thing. Here's one, same thing. I'm not going to get into all the details here, but you already understand where I'm going with this layout. Here's revision box. Here's company name, customer name, and type of plan. And then here again, all your other information, sheet number of how many sheets, the dates, the scale. Here is your legend up here, and then general notes are listed over here. Oh, and here's a north arrow up here. I just saw that. So I see it's kind of slanted off on an angle. You don't have to have the north arrow, but it might be good for reference, especially if you have multiple sheets. That's a good idea to do. Now here's again, we're back to the elevations. So when you're looking at, in this case, we had an elevation of this home, the large estate property, and then I just showed these all my fixtures located, whether it's on the structure or in front of the structure. And this is just the architectural lighting. This was not the landscape lighting, but the architectural on the exterior of the home. Title block information. Here's a small legend. And then this shows different elevations from different parts of the home as you go around the whole home. Here's another simplified plan view. Title blocks, information off to the right. You can see graphically, and again, colors. People like colors, so that helps to identify, okay, all your blue is going to be structures, the darker blue. Black is going to be some of the hardscape, so you get your drive, set of stairs here, barbecue center, whatever else is going on. Green is going to be plant materials or trees. And then they used this legend here. Here's the fixture colors and types. And they use arrows to show to show direction and beam spread potentially, or what they want to illuminate. And then it's broken down. See the purple? Zone A is this whole back area. Zone B is this little tiny area right here, which is basically for, I'm assuming just for this light that's picking up whatever this structure is here. Zone C is this whole region, and then zone D, same thing, off to this end. Sometimes when you zone like this, and I will tell you, Chris Mitchell again, that teaches a course on this called Design-Centric Client Relations. It's a great class because he gets into some of the details on breaking down the process of selling and how to work in a design fee for getting paid for these things. And if you break it down into zones, like zone A, it's going to cost whatever it is, $400 to design. Zone B is 200. Zones, and so on. Then it makes it easier to chunk sizes like that for customers to understand, like, oh, okay, well, let's just do zone A, C, and D right now. And then they can see the total design fee is going to be based on those 3 zones, not 4, unless they pay for all zones to be designed. You know what I mean? So sometimes that helps to sell the project a little easier in some cases. Oops. Okay. Here we talked about as-built plans, which is basically if you take your plan that you originally have, which is the conceptual plan that you start with, and then you come back and you start plotting in other information to it. And it's hard to see here. I'll show you on this next slide, but I've got shown on here all of the basic information that I had originally, which is from this lighting legend. And then I add in another section here, which is a symbol, which is a circle with a slash through it. And then I have space. So if you look, well, I'll show you that in a minute. I'm sorry. It'll be easier to explain when you can see the full size of that. But again, you've got all your other information on here that's included, but I also show cable runs, diagrammatically for the fixtures, where the fixtures tie back into what I call a hub or a main junction box that then feeds from there back to the transformer, which is your primary run or your home run. So here's a close-up view of part of that drawing. So now see this symbol here, the circle with the numbers in it, 3/5. That means that it's transformer number 3, and this is circuit number 5. That's my coding that I use for some of these types of projects. Number 8 over here, that's written off to the side, means that I ran an 8-gauge. Actually, this is the home run existing that I worked with was an 8-gauge cable. This is old school, way back in the old days with halogen. So, and then I locate underneath 68 watts. That was the total wattage on that zone. And the color coding for that home run was red. So this type of information is great for your installation team and for your service providers, because then they can know, okay, on hub number 6, it's color coded purple, it has 52 watts, and then you may even have a whole separate chart that shows you amp loads and such. So then that way you can help to troubleshoot issues down the road. If you decide, well, the homeowner wants to add 3 more lights on that zone, can we do it? Well, according to that cable size and the voltage that's being used to go to the, you can do these calculations and you'll know what you're capable of doing. Don't put this kind of information on at the front end, like I mentioned, the conceptual end. Do it only at the as-built stage. So then that way you have record documents for yourself. You can give a copy to your installer if they don't have the information, and you can also give one to the homeowner if they desire it. Most of them can't even read this anyways, but it's just good information to have. And I always tell my customers, you may want to reference this if you have future work done. Maybe they put in a pool, maybe they want to add change the landscape up. They need to know where cable runs are going so they don't cut through everything. So does that make sense? Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, now here's even more detail. This is our last slide. Again, I'm going to kind of do it here. This is like a 33-acre property. It's huge, big commercial site. But see, they gave me, I got a set of plans from the architect and from the general contractors and such. And I said, I need a site plan that maybe it shows where electrical or utilities are located. And then I could take this copy and then I drew over the top. I don't know if you can see this very well, but these dash lines, I broke up this whole property into various zones or phases. So like one, I've got multiple transformers located out here by these symbols. So you can see it's a big property and there's a lot that's going on, but you can do things like this. Maybe you only reference this to show your power structure information, on sites that if it's complicated or there's a lot going on, show a plan that identifies where all your electrical stub ups are or receptacles or how you're going to tie in your transformers. And then you can do this by zoning too. So then that way it's understood, it's easy to read. Then have another plan created that's maybe just take part of this smaller scale now, that will show just one zone at a time or part of that zone or whatever the case may be. And then you could start plotting in your symbols for lighting fixtures and such. Don't try and cram all that information on something this big of scale, or it'll be so confusing nobody will understand it. And especially installers, if they're trying to figure out, in this case, the installers were a whole different company. It was a landscape company, and it's going to be challenging, I'll tell you that much. So anyways, this was just to show you as an example. You can take whatever plans you get, and I would recommend on larger projects, if you can capture electrical plans, if you can capture landscape plans, site plans, even architectural drawings like of the elevations. I don't need all the documentation for architectural plans because they get into details of walls and roofing and flooring. I mean, everything. You don't need all that. You just need what's most pertinent so that you, on elevations of the building, you can see where are windows and doors located. That way you can tell for viewing. And if you're going to do any architectural lighting onto the structure, that way you can, plan for that in advance. So I hope this helped. Again, this is only, there's so much more on plans, and we'll get into that in maybe a future course. I've got things planned out coming that are going to be very detailed. But for now, this gives you, I hope this gave you a lot of information to begin working with so that you can formulate how do you want to present your drawings, if you do drawings, to your customers. Okay. And if you don't feel comfortable doing drawings or preparing plans, then I would suggest get a service, find a local service, a graphics person that can help present these things. In fact, let's go back. Let me show you. Remember this drawing here, Nightlighters? This is Chris Mitchell's drawing. Again, he goes out and he just sketches this. He does a hand sketch. He can't draw, so he has all his notes and he submits this to his he's got a service where they actually will do this all in like a CAD type of drawing, and then this is the final what he presents at what from his chicken scratch. So you don't have to be a great designer to draw these things on paper and so on. If you can capture enough information, then have somebody else do it or pay somebody to do it for you. I would recommend. All right. Anybody want to see anything that I just showed you here, or can I turn off this presentation and then we just talk? We don't need to see anything?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. Back here now. All right, guys. Thank you for your time on this. Do you have any questions that you want to discuss about plan information, about symbols, things that maybe, I didn't answer initially in the presentation?
I do.
Okay.
I know you had mentioned trying to get as much information, documentation from the homeowner as possible. Um, if they don't have anything, I know you had mentioned, like Google Earth is a good resource.
Yep.
Are there any other suggestions for, you
Um,
know,
I'm not
sources
very,
for getting?
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Nope, I'm done.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say I'm not super tech savvy, so I don't know what the latest technology is, but I know I've heard of guys that are using drones now, where you can actually send up a drone and take an image of the property site and use that. You could get that, let's say, sent a file sent to your local reproduction or graphics, company, and they can print it out onto a plan size sheet for you. And maybe you make several sheets, then you can use those to draw on top of. That might be an angle. Does anybody else here? I mean, are you guys all up on technology on things? How do you get site information up front if you don't have a plan? I have my way. I'll tell you that in a minute, but
I mean, I've always
There's
relied on Google Earth.
Google Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Google Earth, you can get so many good views of a property unless it's heavily tree lined. Then
Yeah.
sometimes not so much. But there's also, depending on your location, in so many states, they have like tax information for properties. You can go in there and get a GIS map that shows plot lines, shows all kinds of different things, how far off the right of way the property is, even where the utilities are coming in. If you're worried about the utilities being on the back of the properties, if nobody's looked at that, find your local real estate websites and look for the GIS survey maps. It's very helpful for utility locating.
Well, and speaking of that, I think there's enough. You can also go to your county office, like they usually have records for homes, especially on
Yeah.
the residential side, where they'll show the site plan or the property layout. So you could take that and then you could actually plot in then on top of that, get that as a reference source.
I would
I
say
don't know
also
if they charge or not. They might just have it free online. So
something to keep in mind is that a lot of times Google Maps and Google Earth will have different images. So if you go back and forth between the two, you can sometimes get more info on one and then the other. Also, like I find like if I go and if I do like a shitty like hand sketch, I can then go back to Google Earth and find like, okay, well, even if it's like trees, I can be like, well, here's like the driveway and here's like the back corner of the house, and I can kind of like, extrapolate it from there.
sure.
You can also sometimes change the date on Google Earth.
Yeah.
So you look at a winter picture, and so the trees are not foliated.
That's a good idea.
So that's good. Yeah.
Good. Any other thoughts, guys or gals? Sorry, Alex.
Plat a survey, can you get a plat a survey from a client?
Yeah, but again, it's if depending on, I think most homeowners don't have that. Or unless they're doing a new residence or something, or maybe they've got files on it, but I've found that most homeowners that I've run into never seem to have any information. So then what I end up doing, if I can't get access to any plans whatsoever, which is a lot of the times, then I just do my relative scale drawing technique where I start plotting it out myself. It's a lot of work, but once you get a system down, they go pretty quick. And I'll be teaching something on that here a little later. But
And it doesn't have to be to scale,
right, exactly.
just
So okay. Any other thoughts or questions? Did you have more questions, Scott? I'm sorry.
No, the what I ran into in the past was, going to Google Earth and you've got a property. I've got a property right now I'm working on, and I couldn't tell you how many giant oak trees are on the property, and you just can't see anything.
Yeah,
But some of the other suggestions, you know, uh, I might be able to find some better images that way.
sure. Sure.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, you're welcome. No problem. Sean, Dan, anything else from you guys?
No,
All
I'm still
good?
new. I'm just in these to learn.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
Only
curious
been
to see
installing for a year and a half.
folks who are doing stuff on the computer, whether like what people are using to draw in. Which I know everyone's kind of got their own flavor of like what works for them. So I'm kind of curious, like what's out there, and like what's like good and easy and cheap.
Yeah, that's a good topic right there in itself. What are people currently doing for designs? What are you guys all using or how do you put together a concept plan? Anybody?
I've used Boss, um,
Lightning Boss.
the rendering program they use for Boss lighting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you
It
like
used
how
to be
they
free,
work?
but now it's a paid service. I think that I've signed up with, and that helps with just a smaller. If you're doing like the front of a home, where it's just a front rendering, you want to give a customer an idea as to what it would look like.
Okay. Good. Alex, I haven't heard. Oh, there you go. Is that one of yours? You're on mute. So there
You
you go.
saw my son, he's 17. He's been working with us. This is his start of design, and
Oh, cool.
yeah, he just does them on a paper. We don't give it to the customer. We used to do that, but we found that it's not valuable to them. It's valuable to us. We keep this with the customer file. I scan it and put it in my computer in the folder with their address on it.
Okay.
Unless it's a giant job, we don't give it to them.
Yeah.
And I think that you already just showed it a little bit, the FX design tool, FX/design, I think it is. You need a photograph to start with, but that's pretty nice. You can put in, the picture, it will put on the bottom the fixture type that you're choosing, and you can even select the exact fixture number that you want to use. And then they show across the bottom, and you can give that to the customer or you can just send it to them. It's nice that way.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that that's a good point, is that a lot of the manufacturers now offer, whether it's free design or they'll give you that assistance like that to help for these preparations.
It's a pretty nice tool.
Sure.
It seems like somebody mentioned a minute ago the Lighting Boss. Have you used them? Who was it that used the Lighting Boss? And tell some more about that.
Scott. Yeah.
I've used it in the past.
Do you pay
So
or what is that about?
it used to be a free service,
Yeah.
and they quit a couple of months ago or several months ago. And then now it's a paid service. I think I pay it's like $50 a month or something like that for it.
That wouldn't be bad if you got used to it and did it all the time.
And
I can sketch
with
up
with
pretty
the
good just using a
paid version, you
Visio
can
or
actually,
Microsoft tools.
like, if you don't use, they have some of the fixtures that they sell, but you can actually, if you don't, maybe you use, not to throw names out there, but if say you use Garden Light and they don't sell Garden Light products, you can actually incorporate, those different fixtures into the
You can
program,
add
and
them
you can,
in
I think,
to the menu.
yes, ma'am.
That's pretty
And
cool.
then you can build like a parts list on the
Because
back
a lot
end.
of times I don't use all one. I have my favorite fixtures from different manufacturers that I go to, and my go-to transformer that I can, everybody can get their hands up in the bottom and work in it,
Yep.
After a while, you start learning which
Oh,
ones
yeah.
you can scrape up your knuckles and which ones are easy, which ones
Sure.
you have an easy time with the warranties, which ones you gotta do a book of paperwork.
Sure.
Yeah.
I got another question for you guys. Do you guys, again, if you're doing the designs, are you charging for your design time up front, or do you just load it into installation costs?
I have a line item for design and I charge by the hour.
Before you get win the
It's
job?
It's in the estimate,
Okay.
but it's line item identified as design.
Now I'm
Yeah.
just curious because I know a lot of people don't charge for design. I think that's
Well,
something
it's your
that,
expertise you're giving away for free if you don't.
yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of value in that, and it's a revenue stream that is easily acceptable that should be part of your business plan. So, okay, good. Anything else? Any other final thoughts or questions?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm just thinking here. I've been struggling with coming up with a way of doing a plan, and I mean, I bought uh, a landscape design program, and I feel like I just kind of threw the money out the door. I haven't even used the damn thing. It's just so damn complicated. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. It almost feel like I'd like to come up with some type of like a template to where I can just incorporate the layout, um, into that template and just kind of build off of that. I don't know if you guys are doing anything like that, but
Well, you can
if
get plan sheets that are pre-laid out with title blocks and everything if you want to use something like that. And then all you have to do is incorporate whatever the site information, like the plan view. Maybe you can have a legend created, like we do something in Excel or something, and then that way you can incorporate that or have that printed onto the same sheet if you're using the same symbols all the time, that type of thing. So there's ways that you can
Mhm.
make your life a little easier from like a plan perspective. You could have some of these general notes, that type of information already printed onto a plan sheet. And these graphic places, like I said, you can go down there and they've got these sheets, or you can create a file of your own and then submit it to them. Then they can print these sheets out on demand for you, which is nice. And then all you got to do is just plot in your plan, whatever it is you're working with, because every plan is going to be different. But you know what I mean? Like from each homeowner.
Has
So
anybody used something like SketchUp and been able to incorporate the symbols from SketchUp? Does anybody like that? Or I tried it a little bit, but it was kind of a hassle too. I didn't love it.
yeah, I haven't.
I live and die in Vectorworks, but that's because I have it from other parts of my life, and so I have like access to it and also. But I know I do for the proposals I send out. I've been starting doing stuff on Canva.com, which is like they have a lot of built-in templates that are nice for
Mhm.
like or just sort of like proposal things, but they have a lot of tools to like save like specific images and save your logo and save like text styles, like your brand, so that when you are creating documents, you can like grab all that stuff to just have it like easy. Like you can upload, you could take a screenshot of your legend and upload it once, and then anytime you do a plan, you can just like drop it in, and they like stylized text and stuff you can use to make things like that's sort of like pre-designed to look nice and just like change it to match your colors or whatever.
And you have that on Canva, you say?
Canva, yeah.
I use that for my music with our band. We create flyers on Canva.
Yeah, I use it more for like some of like I'm usually
But I
more
never thought about that for
Little
Canva.
decorative things. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and I
kinda
know the
interesting.
holiday lighting people love it. They
But that's
use
a
it.
good idea. You could load your logo into Canva and plop it over onto something. And
Yeah,
Huh.
you could put anything you use all the time, right?
The
You can just like,
legend.
a screenshot of your
Yeah, that's a
legend
good
or
idea.
like, I'm
Awesome.
sure you can save symbols or save like stuff that you use all the time, and you can just drag and drop a little more easily.
Yeah.
Good.
My son came up with a good
You
idea.
can just do a search for arrows and
Yeah, they got all sorts of stuff in there already. Yeah.
I'll share with
It's all
you my
kinda, like,
son's
already
brilliant
designed to look
idea
nice,
that he
'cause I know
came
I
up
can't,
with.
like, come up with an aesthetic layout to save my life.
His
Good.
symbol for bullet light is my son came up with this idea and I thought it was a good one. So when you're marking on your sheet and the bullet is going to be a 30-degree, make this a A. And so you're capturing this and put the 30 degrees in there.
Mhm.
And then another one, you're going to make it an A and you put the 60 degrees in there. So you're counting what lamps you got to pick up, easily which your lamp sizes are going to be.
Sure. Well, that's the beauty of what we do. We can create all these things. Whatever works best for you is awesome, because then it's easy for you to read and makes sense. So great. Awesome. All right. Anything else? Or should we call it a night?
Thanks, everybody.
good.
All right. Okay, so we've got more coming, obviously, for next month. We'll have a notice coming out, prior to each one. So I'll keep you in the loop. And thank you for joining today. Appreciate it. And we'll see you next round. If you want a copy of this, like a recording to review through, let me know and I'll send you the recording once it renders in about an hour. So,
Sounds good. Appreciate
all
it.
right, everybody. Thanks again.
Thank
Have a
you.
great night.
Sorry I was late.
Thank you.
Oh, no worries.